Hello! So this evening we are taking a look at the Grumman F4F Wildcat in Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's just been released by GotFriends. Now they have sent me a copy of this to record a video with, so full disclosure, they've given it me for nothing. And typically I don't cover warbirds, but this one looks quite interesting because it can do things like drop bombs and fire bullets. Not that you can actually affect anything, because Flight Simulator won't let you do that, and that's all rooted in the ERB classification of the piece of software, the Flight Simulator game. So as you can see, looking around the aircraft, it's really nicely modelled. So I was actually given a pre-release version of this as well, but I was away on holiday, so I didn't get a chance to take a look at it. So this evening I've been back in the simulator for the first time in about a week and a half, and we're going to go and have a look around the airplane and see how it works. So if we go and look up, you can see it's got this really nice wing folding mechanism. So if we go and jump in the cockpit very briefly, so if we go and press, there we go, and there's a switch on the side of the panel here for the wing control. So if we flick that and then go back outside, we can see that happen. So this would be done manually on board the ship. So normally this is a carrier operated aircraft. We're flying it today from Wycombe Air Park in the UK. You can see this particular model has had a number of victories in combat. So each of the liveries that comes with it are specific models of the aircraft from different squadrons or from different museums around the world. So you can see it's actually really wonderfully modelled. The material modelling on it is very good. If you go and look around inside, and all the animations, you'll see it later when we take off, but all of the animations are done really nicely as well. And the engine obviously is modelled well as well. It's really becoming quite amazing, isn't it, how photographic a lot of these aircraft look. If you go and jump through the glass into the cockpit, which you just briefly saw a moment ago, same story inside. The attention to detail is really stunning. The wear and tear throughout the cockpit is something else. There's a map case there. There's everything that you can see that should be clickable is. So we can have a look around. So as a working gun site, I'll show you that when we actually get the aircraft up and running. Just having a quick look around with the drone camera before we actually get going. Okay, so let's go and jump inside. So I'll put my Xbox controller to one side. If you weren't aware, the way all of these panning shots are done in Flight Simulator is with an Xbox controller, because the analog sticks allow you to both rotate and translate the camera. Yeah, so you can easily move up, down, left, right, and rotate using the analog sticks to do them to move at different rates. Okay, so let's go and press the insert key to go back to the normal view. Press F, and now I'm going to turn on head tracking using the Tobii Eye Tracker, which allows me to look around the airplane very easily while we're sat here on the ground. So the first thing we're going to do, we've already folded the wings down, which was done with the little switch here for the wings. We're now going to go and turn the master battery switch on, which is down here. And then we're going to go and unlock the tail wheel, which is over this side. So there we go, unlock the tail wheel. Then we're going to calibrate the altimeter. So I'm going to press B to shortcut this. So you can see altitude is here. So if I press B, it's already accurate. That's all good then. If I'm tipping sideways, it's because I'm looking at a monitor alongside that's got some notes of what to do next. So on the left side, we're going to put the fuel selector to main, so that's back here. So we roll the mouse on it and we rotate it around to main. Okay, and then the emergency fuel pump goes to on. The emergency fuel pump is over here, so that goes to on. And then, I'm trying to remember where we've got to, magnetos goes to both. So that goes around here, rolling the mouse on it, which is all good. Throttle lever to 10%. So watching the levers here, I'm using my controllers to do this. Mixture goes to fully rich. And then primer, so we're going to pump the primer 3 or 4 times. So once, 2, 3, 4 times for luck. We are going to open the cowl flaps. So all we have to do is actually roll the mouse on this. There is a setting in here, I'll show you in a moment, but if we look outside you will see the cowl flaps opening up around the outside of the engine. Okay, so if we open the map table here, you do see there are some settings to control the aircraft, and you do get some options around things like the ground handling, the interactions, drop tanks and so on and so forth. So we will not bother with that for the moment, but there's also a Garmin. We can have a Garmin on the instruments if we want, so we don't get an autopilot, but at least you get the Garmin. Okay, what's next? So I'll just straighten this up a second. So lights are next. So section, approach and formation lights. So the light controls are down here. So we want the section lights to go to on, the approach lights to go to on, and the formation lights to go to on. Oops, it's a bit fiddly. Some of the switches are in the cockpit. There's lots of things that can be bound amongst the switches and the firing mechanisms, things like that. So I have actually created a new controller profile for my joystick so I can fire the guns and drop bombs. So if you want to drop bombs, you have to go in here and you have to select this before you get the airplane in the air. So we're going to go and at least put some bombs on. The middle 2 switches are the fuel tanks, which we're not going to bother with, but having flicked those switches, if we go and look outside now, you will see, hopefully, that we've got some bombs in place. There we go. So if we use the Xbox controller again to guide our view around the aircraft, we can go in and have a close look at them. So even the bombs are really nicely modelled, and they do follow Newtonian physics. Now, if you want them to work properly, you have to go into the payload and change the left bomb to 100 pounds, which is its accurate amount, and the right bomb to 100 pounds, which is its accurate weight. And then we can go back inside the aeroplane, hopefully, if we can control the views. This always mystifies me with Flight Simulator, actually, that you can lose which way around the keys are moving the views now and again, but we're not going to get too much into that. So we've got the lights on, we've got the bombs in place, we're going to start the engine. Okay, so we just hold the starter on. So remember, we had to crack the throttle open, which I've just done. Okay, so engine is running. Remember, we're on the chocks at the moment anyway, so we can then go and switch on the generator. I'm just going to check the sound levels to make sure you can hear me over the top of it, so I'm going to turn the airplane down a little bit. Okay. Notice we do have a smoke generator, so if you want to go doing aerobatics and you've got someone that you're flying with that's also got the same airplane, you'll each be able to see each other's smoke, and you'll be able to see each other's bullets as well, so you can do mock dog fights and things like that. You do get explosion effects from bombs as well. I'll show you that along the way. Okay, so we've got tail wheel unlocked. We're about to discover that this is really actually quite difficult to handle on the ground. So next thing I'm going to do is taxi out to the runway. So to do this, I'm going to keep blipping the throttle and using a combination of brakes and momentum, and you're going to see it's going to be very difficult to control on the ground. So I'm just going to take it gently. I've gone a bit over the top at the moment. So you end up using a combination of blipping the brakes and revving the throttle to get thrust over the tail. You can use differential braking as well, but I don't have rudder pedals, so I have to be a little bit more inventive. which, as you can see, is not impossible. Okay, so we're just coming out to the runway here at Wycombe Air Park. So we'll just roll the airplane to a stop. There we go. I'm going to put it back on the parking brake for a moment. So coming back down, we're going to go and switch on the landing lights now, or drop them I should say. So if we go and have a look outside at those, notice because I put the parking brake on, it puts the chocks back in. It's a bit unavoidable, but you can see there's this really, really bright landing light now. You can see very clearly now there the cowl flaps have opened up and the airplane is pretty much ready to go. So come back off the parking brake. I'm just going to centre up our views so we get a nice view out of the cockpit as we accelerate. I'm going to open up the throttle. It's going to try and go left because of torque from the propeller, and the right side of the propeller grabbing more air than the left. It does move around a little bit, but it's not too difficult to control. So gear up, and we'll have a look at that happening. So it's a manual process in the real aircraft. You have to wind a handle, I think 29 times to get the wheels to come up. Notice I didn't have to use the locked tail wheel. It was quite happy with thrust over the rudder to stay in a straight line. So once you're in the air, you can then go and wind the cowl flaps back in. So you'll see them closing back in over there. And you'll also notice the performance of this thing is actually enormously good. Its climb rate is stupendous, but that's because what it's designed for. It's fleet defence. You know, so it can take off from a carrier. We will have a look at landing on a carrier in a few moments. I'm just going to have a play with dropping a bomb on Wycombe Air Park first. So you can see we've climbed to an enormous height very, very quickly. We're just turning back towards the airfield, and there's the airfield directly in front of us. We haven't turned the gun sight on yet, so let's go do that. So the switch is down here for it. So you will now notice we have a gun sight, and we can obviously fire bullets, which is great fun. And we'll do the bombing run from the outside view so you get to see it, which also will allow us to see the aeroplane. It's a shame there isn't a pilot in the cockpit. They must have good reasons for that. Maybe they just haven't got an appropriate 3D model. So we're going to turn back around towards Wycombe, which is behind us at the moment. So it says in the book it recommends dropping bombs from level flight, so we'll try that. So I'm just gliding in quite slowly, open the engine up a little bit more. The roll rate isn't fantastic in this aircraft, and apparently that's accurate. I went and looked it up online because I was expecting a faster roll rate, but I think that was the Hellcat that had the faster roll rate, not the Wildcat. But we'll see. It's still a faster roll rate than a Zero, which may be where my memory comes from of seeing documentaries detailing that kind of thing. Okay, so we're coming in over the airfield, fairly level, and we'll drop the bombs in the middle of the grass here. So we're flying in. And they should obey Newtonian mechanics if it works, so we're going to drop them now. Up. Got it slightly wrong. Bang! So you can see there's still some things for them to work on in terms of the mechanics, but it's still good fun. And obviously, like as I said, you can fire the guns as well. So they will. You see tracers. It looks a bit more accurate from inside, so So you can do mock dog fights to your heart's content. Obviously it's not modelling bullets properly because the simulator just doesn't have that in its engine. So there's no point firing bullets at the ground. They're not going to kick up any dust or anything. Okay, so you might be wondering, can you do like carrier landings with this? And yes, you can. I'm going to do a fake carrier landing on the end of the runway here at Wycombe. So all you have to do is drop this lever back, and if we look outside, you'll see we now have a tail hook as extended. So we'll loop around to the runway. We'll drop the undercarriage, which in the real world would be winding a handle repeatedly to make that happen. But in the simulator we get this lovely animated view of the undercarriage coming down. We can do the same with the flaps. So notice the flaps don't come down very quickly. And let's see about getting this back down onto the ground. So it will simulate with the hook us hitting arresters as soon as we touch the ground. So it's kind of a halfway house. You get the feel of how you might do an approach. So you're pretending. It's not really doing it properly, but as soon as we have landed, I'll pause recording and we'll come back in with an aircraft carrier so you get a better idea. Okay, so we're coming in on the VASI lights more or less correctly. Notice how quickly, and we actually get pulled backwards, look. So we can stop the aircraft. Okay, so I'm going to pause recording now, and we'll load back in on an aircraft carrier so you get to see that working properly. Okay, so we are now on the deck of the carrier Lexington off the Midway Atoll, which you can see over in the distance over there. So we're going to have a quick fly around and see how we get on with doing an approach for a carrier landing. So we'll increase the throttle. Oh, actually, let's go and make sure that the parking brake's off. There we go. So hold it straight. Full power. Just hold the attitude off the end of the deck. And then gear up. And we can see this from outside. So this is the Lexington carrier from OrbX that we're using the aircraft with, and it works perfectly well. So if we go and jump back inside, we can see over to the side over here is the Midway Atoll, and we're going to come off the throttle slightly. And look at the back, and you can see there's the aircraft carrier we've just taken off from, the Lexington. It's worth pointing out I am not going to do any stall tests in this aircraft. I have managed to spin it unrecoverably several times. It's worth pointing out I was trying to spin it, but I managed to get it into a really nasty spin. You can make it flick roll with forward stick, but you can also flick roll it into an unrecoverable spin. So I'm not going to force the issue today. So just know that if you keep the airspeed up, you're never going to have any problems. Okay, so we're going to pretend we're coming in on an approach, so we will get the airspeed under control. So we're just looking at the knots down here, get it down to about 140 knots, then we'll drop the gear. And then we could go for the hook now actually, so extend the hook out the back of the aircraft. You can see that happen. So there's your hook. correct speed range now, so gear down. Give ourselves a nice long run in. So everything is visual, there's no real guidance for landing this thing. This is way before the meatball was invented or anything like that. So it's just down to pilot skill. There is a pattern that pilots of this era would have followed, but it's to do with orientations of the carrier and altitude and airspeed. It's not to do with any kind of radio signals or navigation cues inside the cockpit. It's about what you can see. Okay, so let's drop the flaps as well. On a normal what you might call case one approach these days, you would be coming in a lot tighter than this. I'm coming in from quite a long way out to give you just some idea of what we're seeing. We should really have the cowl flaps open as well while we're doing this. So are they going to work? There they go. So it is not an angled deck on the Lexington, so we are off to the right. So we're just going to correct that slightly. So all you're looking to do is maintain airspeed of just about, above 100 knots, and to put the aircraft onto the capture wires. You don't get any kind of rating of which wire you've hit, because remember, the simulator really doesn't model any of this properly, so you're not going to see wires twanging around on the deck, unfortunately, or certainly not with the OrbX Lexington anyway. So it's essentially a controlled crash. Don't try and flare out too much. The aircraft was built to do this. There we go. Not my smoothest landing ever, but in the centre of the flight deck, and you can obviously then taxi away from the deck. So we can retract the hook and taxi over if we wanted to. We could put the wings up, for example. So let's go and try that. Obviously at this point in the real world it wouldn't be taxied on the deck in this way. It would be manhandled by ground crew. So we'll just put it there and cut the engine, and then the wings should hopefully animate. Oops, I've just done the smoke by accident. Are we going to get the wings to work? Nope, for whatever reason it's chosen not to animate the wings, and I'm not, oh, it's because of the flaps. That's 101 with this aircraft. If the flaps are down, then the wings will not. There we go. We need power to get the flaps to come up. So as soon as we got the flaps up, so then we can cut the engine again. And we've actually still got the flaps down. What is going on? Having a bit of a mare today. There we go. Poor old engine. Right, so now we should find that we can lift the wings. There we go. Not the best piece of parking you've ever seen, but as I said, in the real world the aircraft would be manoeuvred around on the ground by the ground crew. They would not be, this kind of aircraft would not be manoeuvred under power. So there you go, it's the F4F Wildcat, Douglas Wildcat in Microsoft Flight Simulator, made by GotFriends, and it's really great fun. If you like warbirds and you like this kind of thing, then it's probably one of the better ones in the simulator, if not the best. It's a shame there's no pilot in it. I'm not sure if they're working on that, or if it's something I've done wrong that means there's no pilot. But yeah, it's apparently it uses all of the flight modelling toys in the in the toolbox, so things like soft body modelling and fluid dynamics and all the rest of it. So yeah, if you like as I said, if you like warbirds, it flies really nicely. It seems to behave as you might expect a Wildcat would behave. So there you go. I'll leave it there. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon.